What is going on, folks? Hey, today on the video, we have Matt Wurst, who's the CMO and co-founder at Mint.store. And let me tell you, man, this is a good combo. This dude's cracked. He knows his stuff. But we talk about some of the idea on where Web3 projects fit into large enterprises. And, is utility kind of played out? And, if you think about utility a little bit differently around token-enabled experiences, and not really this idea of utility, but the idea of what is the cycle that people get in and how do you design these experiences for it. Like I said, man, the guy is sharp and knows his stuff. So check out the video and leave comments below and tell us what you think. Awesome. Well, hey,
good to meet you.
Yeah, you as well. And thanks for coming on. I switched it up last second, decided to do this live. But we are recording as well, so we're doing some editing and chopping up afterwards. I know I said I'd send you an agenda beforehand, but I didn't. So I'm sorry for that. I was just bragging right before this to how I do more. I never did my homework, but now I do research before these things. But did not get to sending out an agenda. But with that, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on. So everyone, this is Matt, the CMO and co-founder at Mint. We were actually just looking through your site some to get a little feel for what you guys were up to and talking about. But you were going to be one of the speakers at NFT Expoverse out in LA in July. So very excited for everyone to be able to make it out to see you live there. But yeah, if you wanted to just see, you want to give everyone a quick info of you, a little bit of background, and then we can jump into some engagement things.
Yeah, sure. No, and thanks for the opportunity. I'm Matt Wurst. I'm the CMO and co-founder of Mint. Mint is a technology platform for brands, creators, publishers, sports teams. It doesn't matter. But what we want to do is give you, as the creator, a platform for the next generation of digital marketing, brand building, communities, and consumer experiences. Now, what that means as we move into Web3 is still going to be a little bit flexible because we're still in this hybrid intersection of Web2 meeting Web3. I have a probably too long career working with both brands and agencies. So my comfort zone is actually that murky space at the convergence of creative and marketing and technology. Mm-hmm. So to pull the ripcord on agency life and build for Web3 a year ago shows just how much I believe in the power and potential of blockchain applications for marketers. It's been this natural progression, but we are now already moving into the next generation of even what tokens and NFTs are. They are not collectibles as a standalone item anymore. No one's buying collectibles.
Preach.
Yeah, they are not speculative investment tools. For very few of the projects that even have already been created, will we see long-term ROIs like we saw over the last year. Mm-hmm. What I believe they are is a token into community participation, whether it's, again, brand building, relationship building, community building. They are access to experiences, and that's what excites me about this space.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, and first of all, so happy to hear that. I hold similar views that NFTs, and even if we continue to call them NFTs down the road, but there's so much more than just a Bored Ape and some bullshit like that, right? There's so much more, and the level of access and things that you can do with them is incredible. But when you're we get a lot of large IPs and brands, that watch the stream and kind of watch some of this stuff. So being able to kind of give some of that view and that lens of, if I'm the CMO, right, for let's say a large established brand's been around 100 years, right, and I'm thinking, mm-hmm. Okay, I'm sold, Corey. Get me into Web3. What are some of the upsides that he or she sitting in that seat would be seeing, or what would you tell them to convince them that this is here's the value of all of this?
Yeah, so there are a couple, and it's a great question because each brand marketer who represents their assets and communicates the value proposition of those products or goods or services to the market, to their consumers, has some common challenges and a common playbook that they can work off of. And the platforms around Web 2.5 or what tokens can grant access to are actually more powerful and more customizable and in many ways more ownable
Mm-hmm.
despite the Web3 extremist language, than even some of the promises that were made by social or digital platforms of Web2. I believe that a lot of them failed to deliver on the community building or peer-to-peer engagement opportunities or gated exclusive access. We
Mm-hmm.
have better data. We can control and own who and where and how those interactions take place in our own playground as opposed to somebody else's playground, like a Google, Facebook, Amazon, if you will. So for me, the biggest barrier to entry over the last year, or there were two. One was a lack of education,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just understanding how and where and why the blockchain is a powerful yet really accessible platform to build on. And the second is sort of accessibility. The level of effort required to set up a wallet, buy crypto, understand who the creators of some of these projects even were, it could be downright scary. But if you've got established brands working on legitimate platforms, empowering the consumer to take greater responsibility or ownership of their relationship with you as a brand,
Mm-hmm.
then to me, the only reason not to do it is ignorance. And we're trying as hard as we can to educate as many people as possible at how easy it is, how customizable it is, and how seamless the experience can be.
Right. And that, I mean, so that is definitely 100% fact, right? The lack of education, people not understanding. But two, I mean, this is the one that I hammer on this all the time. Like, it has been so hard to, I mean, for anyone that's not tech savvy to like tell them to go sign up for a MetaMask and then go buy crypto on Coinbase and then transfer it to your MetaMask. So then you have it in your own, but don't lose your 20 words or whatever. And then you can, make sure to look through what you're signing so people don't scam you. Like, is just absurd. But the fact that we've been able to do like billions of dollars in transactions, right? And that with that level of friction, I think is just a testament to how strong the tech actually is.
Yeah, if you look at it as almost a, dipping your toe in the water, whether you're a creator and brand or you're a fan, collector, consumer, right, in that other end of the transaction exchange, the success of the early NFT 1.0 era was
Mm-hmm.
built on collectability. Now, there are certain behaviors and expectations that taps into, right? Gamification, challenge and reward, engagement, the excitement around buying and selling. But the utility, and we hear that term a lot now, that can stack on top of the collectible model, enhanced by greater accessibility and customization and inclusivity, means I actually don't think that we should be thinking about this as a revenue driver for brands in the direct turnaround way that some of the early phased 1.0 NFT models were driving. To me, they are a marketing investment, but you're building out exclusivity models, engagement models, reward models, and relationships to reinforce and enhance connections, deliver messaging, exclusive content, exclusive experiences. To me, the term utility is really a value exchange. It's defining what it is that the brand or the creator can offer to their fan or consumer, and what do you want in return? You want participation, you want feedback, you want input, you want all those things. And that is the ultimate. I mean, it goes back 100 years to advertising and marketing 101. The playbook hasn't changed. Who's your audience? What do they want? What can you give them? How do you explain it to them? How do you measure it? And how do you optimize it over time? It's the exact same process. Nothing has changed. These are just new, better tools that equip marketers with the opportunity to deliver on some of these promises.
Yeah, and you said that really good, right? And I'm telling you now, I'm 100% stealing this. Is that
Genius is steal, right? That's
it,
man.
That's
The way we do it.
Is that the companies to not think about this as like a direct revenue vehicle in the traditional sense, right? And that this is a marketing investment. This is a community growth investment. And if you do this and you build the stronger community that ultimately drives them to engage with your product or your service more for longer. And how we find ways to measure that, I think will be, it is there. But you mentioned something too that I thought was interesting, especially from like the marketing side of things, is you mentioned utility. And do you think that word, like utility, has become a little played out in that, I hear all of these like projects, and this is less on like large brands, but more on like NFT projects. Like, oh, we're gonna add utility, and by utility that means you get access to some merchandise, you get access to our Discord, and down the road we're gonna do another drop and you get whitelisted. Like,
Mhm.
is that utility or is that like
It's utility and I replace the word utility with value exchange now in the way that we talk about it, because
as I
token
steal?
enabled experiences can be anything that a consumer finds value in. That can be live stream Q&As with brand ambassadors that are token enabled. It could be access to community chats via Discord. We now know that the social channels like Instagram, TikTok, and uh,
Yeah.
Snapchat are building out gated access to exclusive content. We could
Mm-hmm.
talk about participation in polls and governance and feedback. We could talk about exclusive merchandise. To me, it's about defining your parameters. If a collection challenge and gamification, which is what made NBA Top Shot so popular initially,
Mm-hmm.
and brought a lot of people in as just like first time token holders,
Yeah.
that can create value because people want to get some type of experience. It could be tickets to a game, it could be signed basketball sneakers. But
Mm-hmm.
now we're seeing that there are multiple use cases for tokens. And then to your point earlier, I use the term token as a more broad definition of an NFT because fungibility is now in the eye of the beholder. Yes, it is not in the same definition of crypto or even a $5 bill that if you have one and I have one and we trade, like that's a fungible currency. But an NFT has uniquely defined properties. So it can be a ticket, access into a real life event or a virtual event. It can be a reward for participating or earning your way in to something. But when you put those things together, you've now created this positive feedback loop of access, reward, participation, access, reward, participation. And that's how you build value exchange over time. You build community over time because you're enabling more peer to peer transactions. You're enabling conversations to take place. And ultimately, if people just want additional free NFTs via airdrop, so be it. You can do that too.
If that's what the market's saying, right, then go for it.
Yeah. So, know your customer is important, but like knowing your audience is far more important.
Mm-hmm. And so in your mind, like right now, what in this I'll categorize this as answers need to be like large brands, right? What large brands have you in your mind do you think are doing it right, that are moving into web3, that are like doing it well? Because again, like there's no track record for this, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's doing it live, kind of like us right now,
Yeah,
and
I think it's a good question, and I think the answer right now is it's a short list, and it's a short list because of the time it takes to learn and adopt. There were a bunch who came in early and did a test and learn, but may not have had the roadmap or what I call the long-term viable marketing strategy.
mm-hmm.
What your creative is, what your messaging is, how you support it, how you engage your consumer or your customer with the experiences, like those weren't planned out. Now, though, we're seeing what may be a bit of a methodical, more measured approach to strategy. So instead of test and learn, it was like learn and test and learn and test.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think some of the brands that do have broader cultural appeal, desirable IP, relevance in the mainstream, I think we're starting to see some of that come to life, but they're not doing everything right either. I mean, I love the Nike artifact. I love Gucci and Adidas. Like, I love the sort of brands that are going out there, but I think anyone who is going too big into a metaverse or a microverse or a multiverse is probably premature because I don't think the mainstream consumer audience is ready for that or even understands it. But
Mm-hmm.
I laud those who are beginning to test and like prove certain things that do work and prove certain things that won't work. So
Right.
I value that. But I think ultimately those who are enabling the experiences to happen in more gated ecosystems are, to me, doing it well. So those who are claiming and reclaiming ownership of their relationship with the consumer on their owned and hosted platforms, to me, are doing a much better job than those who are just putting, frankly, I don't know the language, acceptability for your audience, but putting
this
shit out there.
this is an R-rated channel, so you're good.
This is
Yeah.
there is now so much crap out there. There is a sea of sameness. I don't think that there's any real value to the Coinbase or OpenSea platform other than reach. But I think in the same way that social channels can bring people back to an owned or operated contained ecosystem or community, I think that's where we are seeing real success. No one is doing Web3 because brands are not ready for Web3. No one's really surrendering ownership or giving control over to individuals. That's not going to work. And we have to realize and recognize that doesn't work. And maybe we grow to that over time, but there is never going to be a fully decentralized Web3 that brands can operate in. Right. It will never happen. So how do we find that middle ground? That is, I call it Web 2.5, but what are the Web 2 and Web 3 connected hybrid experiences? We've built a couple where there's Web 2 overlay on top of Web 3 authentication. The token is what you define it to be. Is it IP that gets you access to experiences, or is it actual ownership of your company? Do we think Procter & Gamble and Coca-Cola are going to become DAOs? It doesn't work that way. But the DAO or the sort of group-funded experience has value over time. So those Web3 native companies that do make it and do survive this trough of disillusionment at the moment, I think have an opportunity to then go back and compete with and maybe even teach some of those legacy companies new ways of working. But to think that they're going to go fully decentralized, I think what's more likely to happen is some of the DAOs, as they get big, are going to realize they need some centralized operational models and leaders and mechanisms for control that make it maybe Web 2.8 or 2.9 as opposed to Web 3.0. And there are certain aspects of this that I love. I was in crypto early on and still continue to be. I am a part of and owner in several DAOs. And in those cases, I value and appreciate and respect and love almost all of what's happening. But for us to think that the billion and trillion dollar companies are just going to change the way they operate overnight, this is a progressive series of steps that need to happen, whether it's through collectible that then builds and becomes access, that becomes exclusivity, that becomes ownership. That to me feels like a more natural progression. And those like the Adidas's or, you know, the fact that LVMH built their own sort of blockchain and platform, it's pretty interesting to me.
Right. Yeah,
I do believe in some degree of composability that should happen. So I want there to be interoperability as well.
Sure.
But this is why, to me, a microverse or a multiverse is more powerful than the metaverse, because there is no the metaverse anyway.
Right. Well, considering I just went and saw the new Doctor Strange, I'm kind of an expert on the multiverses, so
maybe the wrong term.
No. I'm messing with you. No. So something you did bring up that I do think is incredibly interesting is around the idea of thinking that will these like $1 billion companies now just transform into a DAO, right? And obviously that's like a load of shit. My question would be though, and if I can't remember the statistic, but I've seen it before. But like, if you look at the Fortune 100 of today versus the Fortune 100 of 50 years ago, it is vastly different, right? And dominated by like tech companies, and a lot of times no
Apple,
one thought,
Google, Facebook, Amazon, of course.
Yeah, like tech companies would be there. So do you think that in maybe 50 years from now, the Fortune 50 will be capped by like DAO centric? Not purist DAO, but like DAO-centric organizations, right? That might rely on much more like fluid workforces and all this other kind of stuff.
So the distinction here that may or may not be a difference is the operating models of the companies that you've defined have not changed. So they get venture capital money, they grow, they expand, they invest, they take multiple rounds of investment over time, and they scale, right? And then they go public. And as they go public, they are governed by shareholders and boards and all the things that you and I understand to be sort of more traditional or legacy operating models or ownership models, depending on how you define it. Those haven't changed. I mean, the way Google is set up now is the same way that like Dow Chemicals was probably set up 50 years ago. I don't know if that was a Fortune 100 company, but I'm assuming it was.
It's a great analogy though. I'll take it. I'll
So,
take it.
so the operating model hasn't changed, even if the services, the products, or the goods that they've provided have. Why DAOs are different is because they have totally different financing and governance and operating model structures that are very different than the companies that existed before.
Mm-hmm.
People get rich, people get greedy, people get controlling. So I will be really curious to see that as DAOs evolve into cows, I don't know if that's the right acronym, but more centralized, less autonomous operating and ownership models, human nature is hard to change. I love the idea of liberating and empowering individuals and creators.
Yeah.
But human behavior at some point still takes over. And if I am a part of this cadre of select investors, owners, whatever you want to call the DAO participants,
Yep.
I'm going to start looking out for number one at some point. If my investment becomes so valuable, like,
nope, that's fair.
Maybe that's just me. I'm an old guy. It's hard to change my ways. But remember, I was early and defined Web 1 ways of operating in the early days. That was my background. I was the first to build a social media agency operating model in 2008, 2009. And I'm early again here in Web 3. So I kind of understand and see some of the pattern recognition, and I have an idea of what I think will work and what won't. It's not to say that I'm 100% confident that everything I'm saying is right.
Yeah. Well, so
but
all we can do is speak from experiences, man. And we are going to have a chat again because I have a lot of things I want to pick your brain on because you have some excellent perspective on it.
Well, we're all going to be together at NFT Expoverse at the end of July in Los Angeles. So plug alert. Come see us. It's going to be great.
We will be there.
Look, that's weeks from now. Maybe the entire model will have changed, and we'll have something new to talk about.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, then Facebook collapses, and Olympus DAO takes your spot, and all of a sudden, all of our arguments are invalid, and boom, who knows? But with that, man, I appreciate it so much, and look forward to seeing you at NFT Expoverse. And if anyone wants to follow you or see more content, are there any social handles or places that people should look for you?
Yes, please. So our Mint account on Twitter is at mint.store, all one word, MINTDOTSTORE. You can visit our website, mint.store. We've got a LinkedIn page. That's where we're focusing. Me personally, you can follow me, although I promise to not always keep it within the realm of specialized Web3 related content. I talk a lot about the New York Mets. So if you want, caveat emptor, follower beware, at MWurst, WURST. But awesome. We're in the socials. We're in the metaverses. We have tokens to distribute. Check this out. You want to get your first NFT? My guess is most of the people listening and watching already have one. But go to nft.mint.store, and you can see how easy it is to obtain and claim an NFT where you don't need crypto, you don't need a wallet. All you need is an email address, and I'll send you one.
There we go. All right. You heard it here, folks. We'll put some links down in the comments, too, so you guys can check it out. Matt, thank you again so much, my man. I appreciate it. Sorry we had the trouble getting in, but I will definitely be on the lookout for you at NFT.
Because we're talking in a Web 2 interface here. Once we get tokenized access to virtual experiences, it's going to be smooth sailing from here on out.
All right, brother. I appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, Corey. You too. Take care.
Cheers. Bye. All right, Matt. That fucking love that, man. Fucking energy, bringing it. Just gotta bring it. That is. You know what else is that? I love someone that's got an opinion, and the guy has an opinion. Just amazing, right? Like someone that'll sit there and be like, "That is wrong. I don't care what everyone out there is running in circles saying, but like that is not correct. Here is the facts."